Welcome to today's historical deep dive into the rough, unvarnished truth of medieval life. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog and the wind carries sickness straight from hell. Your village might blame a witch, or maybe just the stray goats, for the blight that took half the harvest last year. Welcome to the Middle Ages. Forget knights and castles for a moment. This is about the vast, silent majority, the people who lived and died without their names ever entering a chronicle. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know, bringing these vanished worlds back into the light. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. Dawn breaks in a stink. You stir before the sun, but the day is already loud. Roosters crow. A dog barks somewhere, and a neighbor coughs the deep, rattling cough of damp air and poor diet. Cold bites at your exposed skin as you shift in the straw, pulling the thin woolen blanket tighter. Your nose wrinkles. The pervasive smell of damp earth, wood smoke, sleeping animals, sometimes you share a roof with them, and unwashed bodies is the first thing you truly register each morning. It's the smell of life, unfiltered, a constant reminder of the body's earthy reality. As you sit up, scratching instinctively at a persistent itch on your arm, the straw crackles around you, alive with unseen tenants. Dust motes dance in the faint light filtering through cracks in the wattle and daub wall, thin as old parchment. Your mouth is dry, breath stale with the night's sleep and whatever meager supper you had. There's no morning ritual of toothbrushing or face washing here. Not like you know. Cleanliness isn't about eliminating germs you can't see, it's about visible dirt. The most you might do is rub your tongue against your teeth or wipe your eyes with the back of your hand. The cold, sluggish feeling in your gut reminds you of another urgent need, one that sends you stumbling out into the gray light, past the steaming midden heap near the dwelling, a communal compost and waste pile, to find a private spot behind a bush or tree. There's no pretty, not often, and certainly no toilet with rushing water. Waste is just waste, something the rain washes away or the pigs root through further out. This isn't squalor born of laziness or inherent filth. It's the stark reality of profoundly limited resources, deeply ingrained custom shaped by necessity, and a fundamental misunderstanding of how the body and illness truly work. Warm, running water is a luxury beyond imagining for daily use. Soap is a crude, expensive commodity, if available at all. Your world is tactile, grimy, and fragrant with the raw sense of existence. It's a constant negotiation with dirt. Pests like fleas and lice, and bodily functions undertaken with a shrug because everyone lives like this. It's the baseline of being alive. You learn quickly that survival isn't about comfort. It's about enduring the unavoidable, finding resilience in the face of a world that offers little softness. Ask yourself, could you face a life where this unfiltered reality, this constant grime and stark need, was simply the default setting? Would you survive without expecting comfort, or break under the sheer lack of ease? This is the grit you must learn to live with, literally. You wake in the pre-dawn dark. The hearth is cold ash, the last embers dead hours ago. Your youngest coughs beside you, a ragged sound that scrapes in the quiet. The air is chill, thick with the mingled smells of damp straw, unwashed bodies, wood smoke, and the faint, ever-present tang of livestock from outside the low door. No light switch, no tap to turn. Morning doesn't begin with running water. Your face wash is a quick rub of grit from your eyes, perhaps a splash from the shared wooden bucket by the door, if you're feeling particularly fastidious. And if the water hasn't been used for cooking the morning pottage or watering the scraggly chickens yet. That water came from the village well or the slow-moving stream yesterday, lugged in heavy buckets. It's shared by everyone, lying downstream from where the laundry is beaten against stones, where the pigs sometimes wallow, where the cattle drink. You certainly don't drink it straight unless it's been boiled over the fire. And even then, there's a lurking anxiety, a low fear of whatever unseen foulness might remain. Instead, you break your fast not with clean water, but with weak ale or hard cider. The mild fermentation, a small miracle of nature, renders it safer than the seemingly pure water, a daily gamble for survival in a world where every gulp feels like a risk. Personal cleanliness isn't some abstract ideal. It's a practical concern dictated by the relentless labor ahead. Dirty hands don't plow less effectively, nor do they spin thread more slowly. But a small cut left untended, ignored in the grime, can fester into a wound that cripples or worse, carries you away before the next harvest. The insight here, stark and unsettling, is that cleanliness wasn't about microscopic invaders, a concept utterly unknown. The demons they feared were visible dirt and foul smells, which were associated with miasma, bad, corrupted air thought to carry disease like a physical shroud. Washing away the grime felt wise, a ward against the palpable stink of potential sickness. But excessive washing, especially with bone-chilling cold water in the unheated cottage, could be viewed suspiciously. It might open pores to that same feared bad air, or worse, upset the precarious balance of the body's humors, those four essential fluids that governed health and temperament, as taught by the physicians, influenced by ancient wisdom. The fear wasn't germs, it was drafts, chills, an imbalance of blood or phlegm, or the chilling possibility of divine displeasure made manifest in illness. They built rituals and beliefs around what they could see and smell, around the observable changes in the body and the environment. Reflect on your own morning routine. How much of it is driven by sheer convenience, by a social expectation ingrained since childhood, or by a genuine, though often unspoken, fear of germs, those unseen enemies we've been taught to dread? They feared bad air and unbalanced humors, constructing elaborate theories and simple rituals around these perceived threats. We fear unseen bacteria and viruses, driving a multi-billion-dollar industry built on sanitization and antibiotics. Both are deeply human attempts to control the uncontrollable world of health and sickness, revealing a profound, timeless need to find order and cause in chaos, whether through ancient beliefs whispered in prayer or modern science displayed on a screen. Ask yourself, is our fear of the invisible so different from theirs, or has only the name of the enemy changed? You wake in darkness. The fire is out. Beside you, your youngest coughs. Again. Welcome to today's historical deep dive. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. Stepping outside for the morning's necessities is less a chore and more a simple biological truth you share with every other living creature. The pre-dawn chill bites at your exposed skin as you navigate the familiar, uneven ground near your dwelling. There is no dedicated structure, no hidden corner just for this task. In this small hamlet, the concept feels alien. You find a discreet spot behind a thicket of thorns, squatting low, contributing to the earth, much like the sow rooting nearby. The livestock understand. They are doing the same everywhere. You pray the next rain washes it away swiftly, scattering it into the soil, or that the hungry pigs discover it before the sun has a chance to bake it into an offensive, persistent marker. It's a brief, humbling moment before the day's labor begins, a stark reminder that your body's functions are as raw and immediate as any animal's. Move to a slightly larger village, perhaps clustering around a manor house or a small church, and the situation is slightly more formalized, though barely. Simple pit latrines exist, holes dug deep into the ground. Sometimes a rough wooden frame surrounds it, or perhaps a plank extends over a narrow ditch leading away from a row of dwellings. These pits are often shared between several households, a communal necessity demanding a certain tolerance. You might wait your turn, exchanging brief, weary greetings with a neighbor, also seeking relief. The concept of underground sewage systems, carrying waste silently away, is a marvel known only to the tales of the ancient Romans, a convenience long lost to the practicalities, expense, and perhaps simply the different priorities of your age. The cultural reality is that human waste is not a hidden problem. It is a constant, immediate presence in the landscape. Midden heaps, towering piles of refuse, animal manure from the stables, and yes, human waste scraped or shoveled from yards and pits are common features. They sit at the edge of the village, or sometimes disturbingly close to the edge of dwellings, breeding grounds for clouds of flies that swarm relentlessly in the warmer months, and attracting scavenging rats, sleek with disease, drawn to the unending feast. Waste isn't disposed of in the modern sense you might imagine. It's merely relocated, piled up, becoming an intrinsic, aromatic part of the ambient environment. The smell is a constant, heavy note in the air. Particularly on warm, still days, the visual presence often undeniable, a lumpy, dark testament to daily existence. This forces a stark realization, one that strikes you perhaps when the wind shifts and the smell is particularly strong. Our modern separation from our own waste is a profound and relatively recent luxury. We flush it away, out of sight, out of mind, convinced it ceases to exist for us once it vanishes down the porcelain drain. In the Middle Ages, you lived cheek by jowl with the tangible output of bodies, your own, your family's, your neighbors', the animals'. It was a humbling, inescapable reminder of physical existence, of the messy interconnectedness of all things, clean or foul, living or decaying. It makes you wonder, standing here in the medieval stink, what essential human truth, what humbling perspective we might lose when we abstract ourselves entirely from these fundamental, natural, and sometimes unpleasant cycles of life. Perhaps in all this waste, there was a different kind of honesty. The path to the water source is worn smooth by generations of feet. It's the village well, or maybe the stream where it bends by the old oak. Your life orbits this spot. It's where you heft the heavy buckets, feel the splash chill your hands even in summer. It's where Marjorie tells you about her neighbor's fever, where Thomas grumbles about the Lord's new tax, where news spreads faster than wildfire on a dry heath. The well is a beating heart, pumping not blood, but the shared, vulnerable lifeblood of the community. But look closely. Does the water have that metallic tang today? Is there a slick on the surface after last night's rain? The same stream that fills your pail might have flowed past the muck heap or the field fertilized with potent, stinking manure. Someone might have washed laundry stained with sickness just upstream. The well itself, dug deep into the earth, is a wonder. But how deep? Is it shallow enough to catch the runoff from the nearby privy? You peer down, trying to discern purity in the dim light, relying on instinct, on a quick sniff. It looks clear enough, mostly. Smells, well, like water. You take a tiny sip, swish it on your tongue. It's not foul, not obviously poisoned. This is the silent bargain struck every single day. You understand that bad water makes you sick. You link putrid smells to decay, to humors gone wrong, maybe even to evil spirits lurking. But the concept of invisible enemies teeming unseen in crystal clarity, that's a nightmare not yet imagined. You thirst. Your family thirsts. The animals low in the barn need water or they'll sicken. Necessity is a relentless master. Caution is a luxury you cannot afford. You fill the buckets. You carry the risk home. Think of the casual act of twisting a tap in your own time. Clean, safe water flows instantly, backed by vast, hidden systems of filtration, testing, and piping. A legacy built on centuries of hard-won knowledge about unseen threats. Their safety, their survival, was a far more precarious communal dance. Every bucket drawn was a small act of faith, or perhaps just desperate hope. Your neighbor's carefulness, or lack thereof with their waste, their sickbed linens, their animal pens, it all flowed downstream or seeped through the earth, directly impacting your chance of waking up healthy tomorrow. It's a chilling, intimate connection to your community, forged not just in shared feasts and festivals, but in the constant, low-grade fear whispering from the bottom of the well. Ask yourself, in a world where life's most basic need came with such inherent, invisible peril, was their cautious optimism a testament to resilience, or simply a forced blindness to the ubiquitous threat? The smoke stings your eyes, but the warmth from the cauldron rising over the fire is welcome. The large pot is heavy with water, slowly coming to a boil, the steam clouding the small cottage air. Bathing, you know, is a chore requiring precious fuel and labor. Not a daily ritual like the washing of hands before a meal or the quick wipe of a dirtied face. Full immersion, sinking into warmth and cleanliness, is a luxury reserved perhaps for the infrequent weak. Maybe even less during the harsh bite of winter when every log is precious. Today, though, is one of those days. You wait for the water to cool just enough, then ladle it carefully into a small wooden tub or basin. No porcelain, no silver taps. Just wood and warmed water, often shared within the household. You take a rough cloth, a piece of linen or wool, and a bar of simple soap made from animal fat and ash, effective at removing visible grime, if not particularly fragrant. Starting with the head, then the hands, the face, the neck. Then the private parts. The critical areas are addressed first, with vigor. It's a scrub against visible dirt, against the sweat and grime of labor, not a war against unseen enemies. It feels good, a brief moment of reprieve, a small comfort in a life of relentless physical demands. You emerge feeling refreshed, less itchy, perhaps a little more presentable. But if you live close to a town or are visiting for a fair or market, another option exists: the public bathhouse, a legacy, perhaps, of faded Roman grandeur. These were places where, for a small fee, often a coin you can ill afford but might choose to spend for this rare pleasure, you could soak in a communal tub. Imagine it, a large, stone-lined pool, maybe a few individual wooden tubs clustered around, steam rising from heated stones in a corner, creating a kind of sweat lodge. These were not silent, sterile sanctuaries. They were bustling, noisy, social hubs. People talked, gossiped, and conducted small bits of business. They might eat, drink, even receive a shave or a haircut. It was a far cry from the solitary, private retreat of a modern bathroom. These bathhouses tell a complex story. Their popularity ebbed and flowed like the tides. In some periods, they thrived, centers of community life. In others, they faced suspicion. Were they dens of iniquity? Places where virtue was lost amongst the steam and mixing bodies? The church, while acknowledging cleanliness could be next to godliness, often viewed the social bathhouse with a wary eye, condemning vanity and the mixing of sexes that sometimes occurred. What began as a practical need for washing sometimes blurred into places of leisure and questionable morality, leading to periods of decline, especially in the later Middle Ages. This creates a melancholy irony, a simple, practical comfort becoming entangled with moral judgment and social suspicion. We often carry a persistent image of medieval people as universally filthy, a caricature born of a misunderstanding of their realities and priorities. They weren't ignorant of dirt. They simply had different standards, different resources, and a different understanding of the world and the body. Their baths were less frequent, yes, less private, undoubtedly, and less sanitary by our modern germ theory-informed standards. They didn't bathe to kill bacteria they couldn't see. They bathed to remove the grit of the fields, the sweat of the forge, the visible signs of their toil. They bathed for comfort, for a brief respite, for social presentation in a world where social standing was literally etched onto your hands and face by your labor. This teaches us that hygiene isn't a fixed scientific constant. It's a cultural construct molded by technology, resources, beliefs, and even fear. Fear of judgment, perhaps, more than fear of microscopic organisms. Our modern aversion to sharing bathwater, to communal tubs, is a cultural taboo built on a foundation of germ theory they couldn't possibly conceive. They shared tools, beds, food, air heavy with smoke and disease. Sharing a bath, while perhaps not ideal, was simply another part of the communal negotiation of existence. It makes you reflect. Would you recoil from the shared warmth of a public bathhouse, clinging to a concept of privacy and sanitation alien to their time? Or would you embrace the simple pleasure of truly clean skin, the brief escape from the constant itch of dirt, regardless of who shared the water? Was their tolerance a sign of ignorance, or simply a different set of priorities dictated by the harsh logic of survival and community? It's a question that washes over you, like the quickly cooling water in the basin. The stack of garments sits like a small, shameful mountain in the corner of the cottage. Shameful, because they are your precious few, bought with harsh coin or spun threadbare from flax and wool. Yet they carry the scent of body and smoke and spilled ale like an accusation. You own maybe 2 changes of linen underclothes, smocks or shirts, and perhaps 2 outer tunics of rough, undyed wool, maybe a kappa for the bitterest months. That is your entire wardrobe, and this small pile, it represents a day, perhaps 2, of back-breaking labor you've put off for weeks. Washing isn't a chore you tackle weekly, maybe monthly, when the stench becomes too persistent to ignore, or when the visible grime truly offends the eye. In the brutal cold of winter, you might stretch it even longer, huddling close to the fire in clothes that hold the accumulated filth and oils of months. Cleanliness is a luxury measured not in freshness, but in the removal of the most offensive surface layers. Today is the day. The sun is high enough to take the edge off the air, and the stream hasn't frozen over completely. You gather the clothes, the rough wool scratchy against your hands, the linen surprisingly stiff with dried sweat and dirt. The process begins not with soap, but with soaking. Hauling water, heating it over the fire in heavy iron pots, if you are fortunate enough to own one, or simply taking the clothes to the stream and pushing them down into the icy flow with a long stick. They sit, heavy and sodden, for hours, sometimes overnight, as the water works to loosen the surface dirt. But water alone won't cut through the grease and grime ingrained in the fibers. For that, you need lye, not a store-bought detergent, but a caustic solution made from the very ashes of your hearth fire. Ash is collected carefully, often from hardwoods if possible, and placed in a large wooden barrel or a specially dug pit lined with clay and straw. Water is poured slowly over the ashes, dripping through and dissolving the alkaline salts within. The liquid that seeps out at the bottom is the lye, a yellowish, often cloudy, and surprisingly harsh substance. You test its strength cautiously, maybe with a feather or a piece of wood. Too weak, and it won't clean. Too strong, and it will devour the very fabric you're trying to preserve. The soaked clothes are then transferred to troughs or basins, and the lye solution is poured over them. Here, the real work begins. You beat the clothes mercilessly with heavy wooden bats or paddles, pounding them against a flat stone or the side of the trough. Again and again, you pound, forcing the lye water through the fabric, loosening the dirt, releasing the smells. It is monotonous, physically exhausting work. Your arms ache, your back protests, and the harsh lye water burns your skin, leaving your hands raw and cracked. This isn't just cleaning. It's a brutal, physical assault on the fabric, designed to force out the filth with sheer force and chemistry. After the lye bath and beating, the clothes must be rinsed. This is another battle against gravity and cold. Back to the stream or the well. You rinse repeatedly, pushing the clothes into the water, wringing them out, over and over, trying to remove every trace of the caustic lye and loosened dirt. The water turns gray, then brown, then finally, slowly, clearer. It takes dozens of rinses, hours of plunging your hands into icy water. The linen smocks, worn closest to the skin, get washed more often, perhaps every few weeks, a basic defense against the body's grime. The outer woolens, more valuable and harder to clean, might only see this process a few times a year. They simply get aired out, brushed down, and accepted in their state of perpetual slight soil. The sheer value of these few pieces of clothing is a constant underlying anxiety. A new tunic could mean months of saving or trading. You wear them until they are literally falling apart, patching and mending until the original fabric is barely visible under layers of repair. And here's the irony. The quiet melancholy in this labor. The very act of cleaning them, the harsh lie, and the violent beating shortens their lifespan. Each wash degrades the fibers, bringing them closer to their end. You endure this brutal process not for perfect cleanliness, nor for sterilization. Medieval folk had little concept of germs, but to remove the most visible dirt and make the smell merely tolerable. It's a compromise between the need for basic upkeep and the knowledge that the process itself consumes the precious resource. Consider your overflowing laundry basket, the array of cleaning products under your sink, the machine that washes and dries for you in an hour. It is utterly alien to this reality. Their resilience wasn't just about enduring discomfort. It was about accepting immense, punishing physical labor for basic upkeep, knowing that the cost of textiles and cleanliness was paid not just in coin or thread, but in worn-out bodies and worn-out clothes. It reminds us that our effortless hygiene is built on a foundation of industrial abundance and processes they couldn't possibly fathom. Ask yourself, what level of dirt would you accept if cleaning meant burning your hands with ash water and beating your most precious garments against rocks for half a day? The throb starts slow, a persistent drum in your jaw that steals sleep. By morning, it's a raging torment, hot and sharp. You know what it means. Another tooth is giving up the fight. Your mouth is a landscape of broken yellowed pegs, gaps where others have already fallen or been taken. Dental care is a concept yet uninvented. You might chew a twig, frayed at the end, or rub a rough cloth across the surfaces, hoping to dislodge lodged scraps of last night's stew. Perhaps, if you are lucky and know someone with a small garden patch, you chew a sprig of mint or parsley, a fleeting disguise for the stale, sour breath that is your constant companion. But prevention? The idea doesn't exist. You address the problem when it screams, and scream it does. Tooth decay is rampant, a shared misery. When the pain becomes unbearable, when the face swells like a ripe plum, you walk to the blacksmith or, if you are in a larger village, the barber. These are the dentists of your age. With rough tools and stronger liquor, they will wrench the offending root from your skull. It is quick, brutal, and leaves a bloody void in your mouth that aches for weeks, yet brings blessed relief from the initial torment. Survival here isn't about preserving your smile. It's about stopping the pain that makes work impossible. Your hair is a different matter, less life-threatening perhaps, but a constant, low-grade war. It is long, for convenience and warmth, often covered by a coif or wimple if you are married, or simply pulled back tightly for work in the fields or the workshop. Washing is infrequent. Water is precious, and heating it takes fuel and effort. When you do wash, it's with harsh lye soap that strips the oils, followed perhaps by a rinse of herbs meant to soothe or scent. But the real battle is internal, or rather, infestive. Head lice and fleas are democracy in action. They spare no one. In the crowded, smoky closeness of your home, they thrive. You sit by the fire in the evening or outside in the sunlight, a fine-toothed comb scraping against your scalp, pulling through tangles and, inevitably, trapping the tiny, scurrying bodies. Sometimes you hunt them manually, crushing them between your thumbnails with a satisfying pop. It is a shared ritual. Mothers comb their children's hair, siblings pick through each other's locks. Herbal rinses, brews of wormwood or pennyroyal might offer temporary deterrence, but true eradication is impossible. They are simply a fact of life, like the changing seasons or the tolling of the church bell. This constant, itching reality highlights a fundamental difference between your world and a potential future you cannot conceive. You see lice as annoying, a nuisance, a persistent irritation to be managed. You do not see them as a mark of shame, a failing of cleanliness in the way a later age will. Everyone has them. They are a shared affliction, like a common cold that never truly goes away. Your hygiene is focused on the visible, the immediate. Removing food from teeth, managing tangles, killing the bugs you can see and feel. Prevention of microscopic invaders is beyond comprehension. It's a pragmatic approach born entirely of necessity and limited understanding. Ask yourself, would you judge yourself for what you could not see, or simply learn to live with the quiet, constant itch that everyone else shares? It's the same creature, the same discomfort, but your world finds no shame in its presence. The air greets you not with crispness, but with a complex, ever-present embrace of scents. Wood smoke hangs thick, a constant reminder of hearth and home, mingled with the sharp tang of animal manure trodden into the muddy paths just outside your door. Indoors, the smell of bodies unwashed by modern standards persists, warm and human, layered with stale bread and whatever scraps were left from last night's stew. Step into the street, and it intensifies, the acrid stink from the tanner's pit where hides are steeped in vats that bubble with foulness, the heavy, yeasty scent from the local brewhouse, the faint, unnerving odor rising from open drains where waste flows unchecked. This isn't a world where you seek to eliminate smells. It's a world where smell is. You grow accustomed, the nose filtering out the background hum, only jolted by something truly egregious, like the sudden stench of sickness or decay, sharp and unsettling. To navigate this olfactory symphony, if you have even a little coin, you learn tricks. A sprig of mint crushed in your palm, a small pouch of lavender sewn inside your tunic, a pomander if you are truly fortunate, a silver or gold ball filled with precious spices like cloves, nutmeg, or musk, carried close or worn on a chain. These aren't purely for vanity. They are attempts to create a pocket of good air around you, a shield against the noxious influences believed to ride on foul odors. The surprising insight here is profound. Bad smells weren't merely unpleasant. They were dangerous, carriers of invisible poisons known as miasma. The air itself could be tainted, infecting you, throwing your humors, the vital fluids governing your health, out of balance. Thus, hygiene practices weren't about scrubbing away dirt in our modern sense. They were often about managing the quality of the air around you. Bathing existed, certainly, though perhaps less frequently for some than we might imagine, depending on circumstance and custom. But the constant effort was to introduce good smells, incense in churches, herbs strewn on floors, fragrant oils on skin, to counteract the perceived threat carried by the bad air. The fear of illness, of the unseen forces that brought the coughing sickness or the dreaded plague, translated directly into an obsession with scent as a protective measure. It forces a question. Was their fear of disease so potent that it reshaped their very perception of the physical world, making smell an active agent of health or sickness? Our modern world strives for neutrality, for the absence of scent, a sanitized void achieved with chemical deodorants and air filters. We see natural body odors, or the smell of the earth, as something to be erased, inherently dirty or wrong. Medieval people lived intimately with potent, unmasked smells, understanding them as vital signs, integral to the environment and the body's state. What do we lose when we filter out this raw, olfactory dialogue with the world? Do we gain control or merely sever a primal connection to the untamed reality they navigated daily? You wake, a thick blanket of phlegm coating your throat. A dull ache throbs behind your eyes. This feeling isn't a random invasion of unseen attackers as you might imagine today. No. Your first thought, steeped in generations of received wisdom, is simpler and perhaps more profound. An imbalance. Your body, you understand, is a delicate vessel governed by 4 vital fluids. The humors. There is sanguine blood, hot and wet, tied to courage and love. Choleric yellow bile, hot and dry, linked to ambition and anger. Melancholic black bile, cold and dry, associated with contemplation and gloom. And phlegmatic phlegm, cold and wet, influencing calmness and sluggishness. You cough again. Clearly, the phlegm has gained dominance. Too much of this cold, wet humor pools within you, dampening your inner fire, chilling your blood, bringing on this miserable cold. Perhaps you've been exposed to bad air, the dreaded miasma, the smell of the tannery downwind yesterday, the dampness rising from the river, the general stench of the streets. These aren't just unpleasant. They are potentially poisonous. They carry a corrupting influence that seeps into your pores, upsetting the delicate humoral equilibrium within. Or maybe a terrifying thought whispers, "You have angered God." Illness, this unwelcome guest, is a complex interplay. Internal balance gone awry, external influences like foul air or changes in weather, and sometimes, yes, the wrath of the divine or the insidious work of demons. Medical theory, passed down through texts copied painstakingly by monks, tells you that restoring health means restoring balance. You might seek out the local wise woman, a barber surgeon, or perhaps a priest if you fear spiritual causes. The remedies prescribed will aim to reharmonize your humors. If phlegm is in excess, a warming herbal tea or perhaps a small amount of bloodletting to reduce the wetness might be suggested. If yellow bile is too high, indicated by fever, cooling herbs or a purge might be ordered to expel the excess heat. It's a constant negotiation with your internal landscape, guided by observation and ancient theory. Hygiene, as you practice it, fits into this framework not as germ prevention, but as humoral management and miasma avoidance. Avoiding drafts, keeping your head covered, staying away from damp places. These actions prevent humors from becoming unbalanced or escaping. Washing, when done, is often about removing visible dirt or using scented waters to counteract miasma, not about killing invisible agents. This reveals a paradigm profoundly different from the one you inhabit now. They saw the body as an internal ecosystem, deeply interconnected with the environment, and susceptible to unseen forces, both natural and supernatural. You, today, tend to view the body as a biological machine, often battling external invaders like bacteria and viruses. Both models are humanity's earnest attempts to explain the terrifying randomness of suffering and death, using the tools and understanding available, whether limited observation and ancient texts, or microscopes and genetic sequencing. It makes you pause. Our own vaunted science, is it the final word, or merely the current chapter in this long, humble struggle to understand why the body fails? Ask yourself, if the world believed illness came from within, from the very stuff you were made of, how would that change how you viewed yourself? How would it shape your fear when a fever struck your child? Would it be a battle against an invader or a desperate plea to restore a fragile, sacred balance? You kneel on cold stone. the air heavy with incense, and the faint, lingering scent of unwashed bodies, a paradox in itself. You are here, seeking solace, or perhaps just a few days' respite and charity at the local monastery. As you watch the monks move through their structured day, you see rituals of cleansing, yes, hands washed before meals, simple ablutions, but never the prolonged, full immersion you might vaguely imagine from ancient Roman tales, whispers of which still echo in crumbling ruins. Here, cleanliness is practical, a necessity before handling sacred texts or food. But it is not the point. The insight dawns on you with the quiet inevitability of the sunrise through the high, narrow windows. The cleanliness that truly matters, the one that occupies the minds of these men, is not of the skin, but of the soul. Their prayers, their chants that fill the space morning, noon, and night, their rigorous fasting that leaves their bellies aching. These are their true baths. This is their soap, scrubbing away the invisible grime of sin, doubt, and earthly attachment. You learn that for some saints, acts of washing others, particularly the sick or impoverished, are lauded as profound charity, a physical manifestation of spiritual love. Yet for oneself, an excessive concern with smooth skin, clean clothes beyond necessity, or indeed the simple luxury of warmth and comfort, can border on the perilous sin of vanity. It's a dizzying contradiction. Cleanse the leper, embrace the dirt on yourself. The rules for monks and nuns often include specific times for washing, and monasteries, blessed with the resources of communal effort and sometimes better locations, often boast slightly more reliable access to fresh water, sometimes even rudimentary latrines that are marvels compared to the open pits of the village. Yet, even within these relatively cleaner walls, the priority remains fixed, unwavering. The abbot preaches not on the virtue of scrubbing clothes until they gleam, but on the crushing weight of pride, the subtle infiltration of sloth, the venomous whisper of envy. Salvation, you understand completely now, isn't earned with perfumed oils or spotless tunics. It resides in the intangible state of your inner self, accepted by a God who sees into the very marrow of your being, not the surface. Consider the devout hermit living alone in the wilderness. Their holiness is measured not by the pristine state of their cave, but by the intensity of their prayer, the severity of their self-denial. Bodily discomfort, the itch of lice, the crust of dirt on their hands from digging roots, the persistent ache of damp clothing, is often embraced, sometimes even actively sought. It is seen as a form of mortification of the flesh, a way to humble the body, this earthly vessel, and draw the immortal soul closer to the divine. It is a deliberate suffering, a penance for perceived sins, a mirroring of Christ's own suffering. There is a strange, almost perverse beauty in this logic to your modern mind, where suffering is universally to be avoided, where comfort and health are ultimate goals. They courted discomfort as a spiritual tool. This profound difference in priorities forces you to pause and examine your own world, a world where a vast industry is built around cleanliness, where sterility is often equated with godliness, or at least goodness and success. Our secularized society places immense value on physical health, outward appearance, and comfort. We wash our hands dozens of times a day, sanitize every surface, pursue diets and exercise regimes with religious fervor. Is this purely rational health-seeking, or is some part of it a modern ritual, a way to feel in control, righteous, and pure in a world that often feels chaotic and impure. We seek order, validation, and a sense of doing the right thing. They sought it through prayer, penance, and perhaps even dirt. We seek it through soap, supplements, and social media validation. Both are deeply human responses to the bewildering reality of being alive. They understood the world was impermanent, messy, and ultimately less important than the one to come. Would you trade your certainty in hygiene for their certainty in salvation? It's a question that clings to you longer than any earthly dirt.